WCW Monday Nitro, also September 11th of the year 2000. It's David Flair's wedding to Stacy tonight.
Can't wait.
So earlier today, David arrives in a limo. He is greeted by Crowbar, who says, for all that happened between us, I just want to say I'm your friend and I wish you well. And Daphne, his ex-girlfriend, is there with her new boyfriend, Ozzy. They all say hi.
I was so mad. They just fucking introduced us to Reno. I just finally figured out who Reno is. Now they're calling him Ozzy. That's the guy, right? Isn't that the same guy?
No, not close to the same guy. Ozzy and Reno are not the same.
Who the fuck is Reno dating then? Remember he was dating somebody?
It was a Nitro girl.
Oh, was it?
One of the Nitro girls
so who
who
the
went
fuck
home
is
with
Ozzy?
Daphne's boyfriend.
He's
a
new guy. Fuck this. He looked like Reno.
They did have the same haircut.
Yeah, two just weird dudes.
Look at emaciated Reno. So David asks if they have seen his dad, and they all say no.
Jarrett have a phone.
Jarrett is watching from the locker room. He calls this outlandish vaudeville.
Well,
and says the band needs to play at this wedding. And he picks up his guitar. Which, come to think of it, led to nothing. The Filthy Animals cut a promo. Disco Inferno says Chronic attacked him on Thunder.
So mad already.
So because Chronic attacked him on Thunder, he is getting Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrera to beat their fat asses. That's what he said.
He volunteered Rey and Hoovy to face Chronic for the WCW World Tag Team Championship belts.
For Rey and Hoovy's Tag Team Championship belts.
I see.
Yeah, he put their titles on the line.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. So
for some reason, I thought Chronic was the champs. I was trying to figure out why Rey and Hoovy were so upset.
No, the story is he's an idiot.
I see.
And got his friends in trouble.
Got it.
So Conan's on commentary. Among what he said about Chronic, their strengths include A, they have good tans, B, they are tall, and C, they will not sell for little guys.
More or less.
He got yelled at for that one.
Yeah, he did.
So, say what you will say about Bryan Adams or Crush. He gave Ray Nelson the greatest, Rey Mysterio, the best full Nelson slam I ever saw.
I thought he was going to go through the ring.
It was so awesome. The Heresies attack Chronic. Disco hits one of them with a stunner. They throw him in. That's not
It's Clark.
Him. Clark gets it with a leg drop and a 450. He kicks out of that.
Yes.
And so finally, Rey Mysterio just jumps off the top rope, stomps on his balls, and pins him.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's his finish these days.
The combo nutcracker.
Yes.
This was all right.
It was fine.
The highlight was Conan.
As always. Stacy Keibler and her parents arrive. I can only imagine what they thought of this circus. We spend several minutes recapping last week's Triple Cage swerve, which is great because I was behind and I could fast forward like 3 minutes of this.
So they claim that Vince Russo has suffered his third concussion in 3 months. And they have this footage of this and that. And Mark Madden is joking that he underwent brain surgery and is barely alive.
Right.
Tony says we're going to have exclusive footage of the brain surgery. And then he says, and I quote, tonight, a wedding and brain surgery.
That is what he said.
Now, I bring this up because Russo had suffered at least one concussion, and he'd been having post-concussion syndrome. But he still went out last week and wore a helmet and did this match where he's taking bumps and getting kicked in the head.
Right.
So, I don't know if he actually suffered another concussion in that match. I would not be surprised. But he's not doing well.
Now,
and he's got more to come.
Didn't they do this whole thing as a dig on Bret Hart?
Well, they did, but he had actually suffered concussions. And he may have gotten another one when he got kicked in the head by the Shat last week.
So the Cat comes out for a promo about powers. He announces that Vince Russo was not there, and Russo's injunction was thrown out, so Cat is in charge again. For those of you keeping score of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Nash is going to defend his title against Booker T at the pay-per-view.
Yes.
Cat makes that a cage match.
To quote, keep Vince Russo goon away. Is that like Suzuki goon?
It's not, but I'm glad you said it. So he makes Kevin Nash versus Booker T for the title of the pay-per-view a cage match. Then he announces that tonight on this show, Nash is going to defend his title against Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
Shouldn't Booker be pissed off then?
Should be.
His title match is at risk now. Then Miss Jones.
Well, presumably he still faces the winner.
That was never said, and who the hell knows with this company? Miss Jones, who never speaks, cuts a promo on Jeff Jarrett. Says, you like beating up ladies. Well, I believe she said, put her foot all up in his ass.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Chat wrote her promo.
This is the same woman who 2 weeks ago had a neck brace on because Jeff Jarrett El Kabonged her with a.
Well, that's why she wants
guitar.
revenge.
I guess so.
She wants to beat his ass in a match.
And what happened at the end? Well, we'll get to that in a second.
So Jarrett comes out, offers to fight Miss Jones handcuffed to prove men are superior to women. This leads to Kat and Jarrett having a brawl. And Steiner comes out. They beat up the Cat. They hit their moves. They leave him laying. You go to break. Come back. And Sting and Booker T have arrived.
I laughed so hard at this segment.
This is amazing.
They show up and they are over all of this. They don't care about anything.
Sting in particular.
Sting's just there.
You've
He's
never
gonna-
seen...
no makeup.
They, as much as they call 1980s Sting, they call him Surfer Sting. This was Surfer Sting. His hair is all shaggy, got his t-shirt and sunglasses on. He just wants to be at the beach somewhere. He's here to punch a clock and go home.
They announced that Shad got his ass kicked, and they're like, cool.
My notes
Well,
here.
hey, let's do something about it.
The Red Rooster stooges off the bad guys, say they beat up the Cat. Sting and Booker T, as I write here, they give zero shits.
Oh, nothing. True. Not one fuck is given in this segment right here.
Big Vito versus Reno in a stickball bat on a pole match.
Yes.
As this is going on, or the intros are being done or whatever, we are informed of the following things. Booker T is now going to be a special ref for the main event. Goldberg is going to be the special enforcer for the main event. And Mike Sanders has been suspended a week without pay for his actions at the power plant.
What?
I have no idea.
No one ever says what happened at the power plant. So they're doing this pole match.
Stickball on a pole.
Stickball bat on a pole match. The ref gets bumped.
In a pole match.
In a pole match. Vito gets the bat. Gets beat up anyway. So good thing you got the fucking bat then.
Sure.
Johnny the Bull makes the save.
Johnny the Bull, you say?
But you'll never guess. It is a swerve. And he turns on his friend Vito.
The dumbest fan.
Was this really a swerve? Because who couldn't have seen this coming?
Like the dumbest fan saw Johnny the Bull turning on Vito, and he did. No pop, no reaction.
Nothing.
I mean, none. No reaction whatsoever.
Right.
And Reno pins him in a pole match.
Pins him in a pole match with Johnny the Bull and Chuck Palumbo in the ring. Who after says, oh well, and he counts the 3.
You know, say what you want about Big Vito. He continually tries really hard.
He is the little engine that could.
Yes.
He did, in fact, get up after being pinned in this pole match. He jumped up and fought back.
Of course he did.
And then I believe the Thrillers came out and stomped him down anyway,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
He's the complete opposite of Sting and Booker.
Yes.
Hey, speaking of...
he really is.
Booker and Sting meet with Shad. Shad is very upset about being beat up. Shad says, we got to take the show back tonight or we're going to lose it forever. I'm like, we can only hope. And he says these words, and that's literally what Sting and Booker thought, because they're like, cool. Let's go take it back. Even I could not be.
Where were they at? Was weed legal then?
They were in Arizona.
There is no amount of weed that would have chilled out Sting and Booker T like they were chilled out in this segment. They were practically asleep.
Going back over this, I'm kind of surprised, based on how Sting was behaving at this point, that an hour later we saw him and he actually did put his makeup on. I can't believe he even bothered at this point. He should have just said, I'm Steve Borden, pro wrestler.
Threw some powder in
Real
his
estate
face.
Steve.
Real estate Steve. So, yeah, that'll happen. Tori Wilson is warming up backstage. We are told she's going to wrestle Medusa.
Why?
Don't know. Jarrett and Steiner and Nash are laughing about beating up the Cat when the Cat storms in with a crowbar and Booker storms in. I think he's got a bat. And the bad guys are all scared. And that beating the Cat took accomplished nothing.
Nothing.
He's fine now.
Not only that, they beat him up, and Shat goes in there and he says, "We're going to have some matches tonight. And if you guys don't do these matches, you're fired." I'm like, why'd you just fucking fire him?
I don't know.
You've got all the power now. They beat your ass. They broke a guitar over your girlfriend's head that you don't give a shit about. Like, just fire these fuckers.
If you're willing to fire them, just fire them now.
Yeah.
Pamela interviews Medusa, who explains...
Now, like, what is your big problem with her?
that was her question. Medusa, to answer your question, Greg, Medusa explained that she had been hired to train all the women wrestlers in WCW these days. That's what she said.
I know.
All the women wrestlers.
Which is basically all the women on the show at this point.
Say, are there any?
There's Major Guns.
No, there's a bunch of women that do matches.
Yes.
Right.
But there are no
They
women
don't
wrestlers on this
wrestle.
show.
That is true.
That's her problem, by the way.
Well, she says she's tired of training these women. They have no talent, she says.
Well.
She's going to show that little punk ass what it's like to be a woman in WCW and not just eye candy.
This was so bad.
Especially when Tori came out in this little leather number, and you could tell that she was a woman.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Medusa versus Tori Wilson. We get clips from Thunder of Medusa laying out Tori and Shane Douglas.
Oh.
And like 10 seconds go by and Shane Douglas runs into the ring. It's not a DQ when he hits the ring. It's not a DQ when Medusa beats him up for a minute. But when Medusa misses a drop kick, now it's a DQ.
Yeah. She tried a drop kick. Shane moved. That was an offensive move. Had he not moved, it wouldn't have been a DQ.
It would not have.
But moving, allowing her to crash and be injured as a result of him,
Shane-
was a disqualification.
Shane, you deliberately dodged.
Well, hey, I mean, it was his fault she got hurt, so that's not the worst call I've ever seen, but it's up there.
So they beat her up. Shane threw a hell of a suplex on Medusa here. They put her in an STF, and Tori mocked her, and Kidman saves. And Medusa says, Kidman...
Well, Shane Douglas mocked her. He called her a bitch and Daryl told her to escape. He's got her in the STF. He goes, "Escape, bitch." I was like, what?
That is what
Let go of her then.
He's not calling spots, dude.
Dude.
He's mocking
We
her.
had that later. I wouldn't put it past his show.
Medusa wants the women to be in the scaffold match the men are having.
Oh, I'm sure she did in real life.
And then Shane and Tori accept. And all I can say is, if you like the word bitch, this is the segment for you.
Yeah, there was a lot of B words here.
And Medusa is still talking as they fade away.
This was Kidman's return from being hanged.
It was. They
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Yeah, this is hanging. Comeback.
Crowbar is backstage helping David dress for his wedding. Tori Wilson is in her room getting dressed for her wedding. She's got the dress on. They're like doing
Stacy.
Stacy, what did I say?
Tori.
It is his Tori. Stacy.
They're both lovely women.
They're fine-looking young ladies. Tori, I said it again. Stacy Keebler. Well, my notes read Tori, so that's why I keep making the same mistake. I'll fix my notes here.
Please.
On the fly. Good
Yeah.
job.
I'm a professional.
I know.
Stacy Keebler is backstage getting ready for her wedding, as my notes here clearly say. And Jimmy Hart runs up out of nowhere. Jimmy Hart!
Where's he been?
When was the last time Jimmy Hart was
Was
on
it
Nitro?
Jimmy Hart? I thought it was just some random
No, it was James
courier.
Hart, the mouth of the South.
Wow.
Apparently he's a courier now?
He runs up. He says, "Stacy, I have a registered letter for you." She says, "Okay, thanks," and puts it on a shelf. He's about to leave, and he says, "Oh, and by the way, congratulations and good luck." And he leaves. Like, while I'm here,
Yeah.
if it's not too much trouble,
I mean, he wasn't invited to the wedding, so.
so he's bitter.
Yeah.
I see.
You know what? Possible.
Just telling you.
Completely believable.
Couldn't even get hired on as the band.
So another limousine arrives, and it parks. But before we can see who is in it, the Partridge Family bus drives up.
Yeah, that 70s guy.
And Mike Awesome actually is driving the
Yes.
bus.
So I wish Lance were still on the show so he could confirm or deny this, but I heard that he hated being that 70s guy.
I'm sure he did.
But why wouldn't you?
So none of these other shitty gimmicks he cared about, like he was fine with the fat chick Thrilla, like all of these other he's had like 10 shitty gimmicks in 10 weeks. This is the one that put him over the edge. He's wearing a cool suit and he's driving a
he's
fucking
not.
bus. Who gives a shit?
It's probably very hot.
He was driving a
all
cool bus
fucking
and wearing
things.
a suit.
He didn't even have a bus driver. He just has a bus. We're to believe that he drives around the country.
Yeah. He's
No doubt
that
playing
70s
Casey
guy.
and the Sunshine Band.
He's like
There's
he's like
far
Deadheads.
worse things you could do in the middle of WCW in 2000
Well, that's-
than drive around in that fucking bus and listen to Casey and the Sunshine
He's
Band.
like Deadheads, but following Seals and Croft.
So Steiner is pissed backstage about everything.
Of course he is.
And
So Nash says, listen, I'll touch you. You go down.
Excuse me.
I'll pin you.
he even outright says, we'll do the finger poke again.
Yeah.
Steiner's
And Steiner has never even thought of something like this. Wait a second. I'll lay down and let you pin me?
Yes.
He's flabbergasted. Nash goes,
all
yeah,
foreign.
you lay down, I'll pin you and win. Steiner's like, fuck. This whole business has changed. That's a segment.
I like when Steiner's pissed and Nash is trying to calm him down, and Steiner says, what are you doing there? They're sitting all calm like Jimmy Buffett.
Steiner on the show was out of his mind, as we'll learn later.
He gives zero fucks, but in a different way than Sting.
Yes.
Jeff Jarrett versus Miss Jones. So Jarrett comes out, does a misogynistic promo. The Cat comes out to make sure the cuffs get put on. They handcuff Jarrett's hands together in front of him,
Yes.
which is barely handcuffed.
Right.
But then he's handcuffed, and the Cat sucker punches him.
Well, the good news is that the heel was the dumb shit as opposed to the baby face. The bad news is he came off as a baby face because
Yeah, when you
the
say
baby
heel-
face was a heel.
I'm not even sure which guy you're talking about here at any point.
This is so fucking dumb.
So, Cat sucker punches Jarrett. Miss Jones says, no, I'll take care of this. You go leave. They're doing some stuff.
Another idiot.
They're doing some stuff. Tony brings back the rail of pain.
Yeah.
Because Tony's grasping at straws, anything he can do to make himself laugh. Miss Jones, at one point, nut shots the ref. And as God is my witness, I don't know if it was supposed to be an accident or not.
Why?
So then she turns and nut shots Jarrett, which is so effective. He grabs his guitar, he El Kabongs her, and he wins.
These fans went batshit crazy for him hitting over the head with his guitar. You know the birth rate has plummeted since 99? No surprise watching this show. Fat Chick Thrilla makes a save.
Yeah.
So Jarrett was doing all the populating? What do you mean?
No.
No, clearly there were a lot of men who hated women.
I see.
And are not having sex.
Yes. And that is a statistical, factual statement.
The
A lot of these men in this era did not have sex and have children. Period.
the dumb thing is, okay, it's all dumb, but Mrs. Jones was wearing a neck brace because she got El Gabonged by Jeff Jarrett, and now we're back to square one.
Yeah, she wanted her revenge and it backfired. Because she's dumb.
Yeah, okay.
So Nash is still trying to explain this whole finger poke thing to Steiner.
Okay, there was actually a really good thing here.
A lot of good things here.
Nash is drawing on a whiteboard.
Yes.
He draws a stick figure of himself, draws a stick figure of Steiner laying down, points that, I'll get on top of you, and then he starts drawing the belt on himself. And Steiner's watching all of this intently, and then he goes, why don't you lay down? Nash goes, I'm the champ. Steiner thinks for a while, and then he goes, you don't think I could beat your ass? And it's so awesome because his question is, you don't think I can beat your ass? And Nash's response is not, well, of course I can beat your ass. Nash pauses for a split second and then just tries to change the subject. I howled
This
because he knows I can't beat your ass.
Right.
That's why I'm asking you to lay the fuck down so I can just pin you.
This was a great segment because it's like we were talking about with the sheep herders. Scott Steiner's out of his mind crazy, and you can't imagine him not being Scott Steiner all the time. And this skit is basically trying to be Scott Steiner in a normal environment. Because Kevin Nash is relatable. You can see yourself hanging out with Kevin Nash. But Scott Steiner's a madman. And this is the contrast of personalities among other things made this great. It was funny. It all made sense. This was a good segment.
Okay, so this is also weird because Steiner says, I'm going to go talk to Jeff. He storms off. So they go to commercial, they come back, and apparently they've had their talk because Jeff now walks in and he's saying, dude, Nash, we got to get this thing handled, blah, blah, blah. And Nash goes, listen, dude's laying down for me, so you go tell that to your retarded friend.
Yeah.
And Jarrett's on his way out as Nash says retarded friend. And Jarrett stops in his tracks.
Record scratch.
And he turns, looks at him and goes, retarded? And then he walks out the door.
Yeah.
He was totally taken aback by Kevin Nash using the term retarded. That was too much for this heel Jeff Jarrett. He'll beat up these women.
He's been hitting women every
week.
week.
He'll break guitars over their heads, but man, that is unacceptable to Jeff Jarrett.
Hacksaw Duggan comes out.
We need a Hall of Awesome music.
He got a promo on cancer and how he beat it. But now he's realized no man can beat Father Time.
He says, I won this battle 2 years ago. I've got to thank the Lord Almighty, my friends, my family, the great fans. I beat it thanks to you guys, and I came back to this business that I love. People are going crazy. They got shots of people crying. Mm-hmm. I'm like, look at this fucking guy. He's so great. He's talking about Father Time. 20 years in this business, I feel like it's passing me by. Now, the bad thing is, he was so good doing this speech, but because it's WCW and everything is a fucking swerve, not one single solitary person believed that he was actually going to retire. Mm-hmm. That part sucked.
Yeah. So he's not afraid to step aside and let the great young talent make a future for themselves. And he's cutting this fiery promo. And he's defiant. He's fiery, like I said, but he's also sad. He's retiring. A little misty-eyed. Voice is cracking.
Over 20 years, the only two things I ever carried were this 2x4 and the flag of the United States of America.
Yes.
I need someone to carry this torch, carry this flag, someone young, someone strong, someone tough who loves this country as much as I do.
And after this speech,
who is this?
Everyone's going so crazy for this. Hacksaw Duggan has to name as the next champion of America.
Passing the torch.
He has to say, with a straight face, mind you, General Rection.
Huge erection.
Yeah.
Please come out here and wave this flag.
Yes.
What?
That's a flagpole. So they come out, and Rection takes the flag, and they salute each other, and they shake hands. At this point, Lance Storm and Major Guns interrupt. Major Guns, much hotter as a Canadian.
Thank you.
So
very true.
Lance says General Rection has a title match for the Canadian title at Fall Brawl, but he's also willing to beat him up right now. So we do this match. You mentioned earlier about how Lance is no longer doing a show here. I want to have Lance on a show to ask him, how are you alive?
Yes.
After you jumped into midair and General Rection caught you in a powerbomb, I think drove you harder into the mat than you were going just on gravity, and your head bounced off the mat and folded all the way forward into your sternum and then folded back. It was so brutal.
This is worse than what Chronic did to Ray earlier.
Yes, this was worse. I know he's talked about, I think it was awesome. I think it was awesome. Somebody gave him a top rope powerbomb and they just had no table.
That sounds like awesome.
So they just did the top rope powerbomb anyway. This looked worse than that. So eventually he does survive. He gets the maple leaf, but Duggan is there to point out that Hugh G. Rection's arm is under the ropes. So Lance punches Duggan. Duggan responds by hitting Lance with his 2x4, and Lance was flying through the air, and Rection catches him with a power slam for the win.
Bet must be over.
Then Duggan celebrates with huge erection afterwards.
Excuse me?
I can't believe it. I hate this show.
Stacy is hanging out alone by herself with no friends in her locker room, just like any other bride-to-be.
Sure, yeah.
And she says, I guess I'll open this registered letter now. Got nothing else to do. And she gets some distressing news. So the David Flair-Stacy Keibler wedding. Everyone comes out, but then before the ceremony can start, David must speak. He says, in the past months, I have let down my friends. I have let down my family. and I have let down one man in particular. And they're in Charlotte, and everyone starts going boo. And David says, Arn Anderson, come on out. So Arn comes out. Now Arn's got to talk. Mm-hmm. Arn, apparently thinking he's at the bachelor party and not the actual wedding ceremony.
Right.
He gives David advice for his wedding, which is when your buddies call you to go to frat parties or strip clubs or fishing trips, it's easier to beg forgiveness than permission. Now,
it's true.
Thank you, Craig. I am guessing that of those three, you get a lot less trouble for the fishing trip.
Sure.
This seems like an unfair comparison.
Unless it's on her birthday.
Oh, that's fair. Rule number 2, Arn says, you're going to get a lot of cash for your wedding gifts.
Mm-hmm.
What in the fuck is this guy talking about? This fucking advice, it was like, this actually reminded me of a real wedding where you got to have the crazy fucking guy who decides he's going to do some comedy, but like it's not funny and nobody's laughing, and he just digs himself deeper into this fucking hole. That's what this was right here.
So hide that cash, he says. And then number 3, when you come home late and you get in a fight, she's going to lie and say everything's okay when you go lay down.
Things are going to get heated, he says. Maybe even domestic.
Well, he did say that. I don't even know what that meant.
What do you mean you don't know what that means?
I don't want to acknowledge what it meant.
Okay.
So he advises David at this point to grab the cash and leave. That's Arn's speech for the wedding. And then David Flair, after all this time, does the flattest, worst job of teasing and building to the announcement of Ric Flair. Flair has not been seen since David turned on and broke the 47th statue over his head and they shaved him bald. This is his big return. And David's like, thank you, Arn. And now Ric Flair. So Flair comes out. He's got the spiky haircut.
Looks good.
I disagree.
This is the first time that we saw Ric Flair since he got his fucking head shaved.
Mm-hmm.
For decades, people wanted to do an angle where they shaved Ric's head.
Yeah.
Finally, Vince Russo talks this guy into an angle where he shaves Ric's head. We never see Ric bald.
No.
After he gets shaved. He goes home and he comes back with a full head of hair.
Yes.
Dude.
Nitro.
Fuck.
I do think it's funny that he got this haircut, which I thought was horrible, until the day Nitro died. He didn't go back along until like he was on Raw. So Flair now has to get a promo to interrupt this wedding. Can you imagine the father of the groom interrupting a wedding for a promo? This is bad times. So it talks about how he and his family have put everything back together, they put their life back together, and finally they start this goddamn ceremony. But here come the cops. Boras says, I've got to investigate. He leaves the announce desk to interview. So the cops explain Vince Russo had a restraining order placed against Flair where he is not allowed to come within 100 yards of the building.
Yeah.
Russo's not there.
Yeah.
It's the building.
Yeah, this is
the
stupid.
brick and mortar.
Yeah,
you can't approach.
That makes absolutely zero sense.
So they arrest him and they take him to the back, and Stacy is so distressed that she follows him as well. After the break, Flair is loaded into a cop car. Arn promises him he will take care of David. We get B-roll footage of Vince Russo getting a series of concussions.
Stacy runs backstage. Did she run after Flair, or did she just flee the wedding? We don't know.
Don't know. So we have clips of Russo's alleged brain surgery.
We got like 15 minutes here, so let's get moving.
Doctor talks about had emergency surgery to heal a blood clot in his brain. He'll be out 2 to 5 months and deal with nausea and visual obscurity. And just in case any of you were thought this may be legit, Tony Schiavone says, I'm not buying this.
No, of course not. He's back like next week or whatever.
Sting comes out. The Heresies come out. I had no idea what was happening, but apparently it's a handicap match. A no DQ handicap match where they're beating Sting up with chains.
Well, there's 3 teams in there or whatever the fuck this was. They're just doing this 3-on-1. There's chains, whatever. And like 5 minutes in the match, Tony Schiavone just calmly says, I guess this is no disqualification.
Yes. Yeah.
Somewhere in here, Sting pins a Harris. I have no idea what was happening in this segment. I have zero idea what was happening in this segment. I don't know why it aired on television. I don't know what the point was. I don't know what the rules were. I don't know what. I don't get it.
Well,
baffled.
I can add that Chronic helped Sting win, but I can add nothing else. Steiner and Jarrett yell at each other, and Steiner says, Bullshit. David goes to Stacy and says, everything's set up. Let's get married again.
She says, no, everything's gone wrong. Let's just do this on a different day. We'll start over again. He's begging her, I love you. Let's do this now. He drags her to the ring for their wedding.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to go.
No.
I'm like, hell of a wedding you're doing right here.
Chivalry. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
chivalry.
the wedding starts again, and the preacher gets to the line about if anyone wishes to object, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah,
And
can we add one thing, even though we only got 15 minutes left? This guy starts doing the whole wedding speech. He's going on and on about faith, and this is a journey, and the crowd is absolutely dead. I'm like, do we really need to spend 5 minutes on this fucking thing before we get to the point of, if anybody has anything, speak now or forever hold your peace?
And everyone just turns and looks to the back. I laughed my ass off.
Stacy looked to the back. She was the first person to look for the back.
Stacy was hoping someone would interrupt and save her from having to do it. So she raises her hand, cuts a promo. There's a mic there on the stand, but she's standing straight up, so they can barely hear her. She reveals the news that she's pregnant, but David is not the father. And David is shocked, and he turns to look at Arn, and Arn says, it's not me.
Dude,
I laughed.
Anybody here ever taken a paternity test?
No.
I'm looking at you, Rob. Okay, I haven't, but how do you determine that David is not the father if David is unaware that you did a paternity test?
You would have to get his DNA somehow.
So how in the world? He's baffled.
I can only imagine.
He does not know what's going on. I was like, the storyline doesn't make any sense. She knows David's not the father, but David has no idea that she got a paternity test done.
Well, Brian, maybe she got the DNA from the guy who is the father, and they checked that, and it matched.
I see. Well, we'll find out.
Find out.
Because the mystery is, who's the father?
So she's distressed, and she storms out of the ring, and they shoot this. She's coming down the steps. The camera's on the floor looking up, and behind her you see thousands and thousands of empty seats.
Yeah.
Okay. The following happens in one uninterrupted camera shot.
I just love the first part of it, which is Mike Awesome is dragging Pamela.
That's like the fourth thing.
No, what are you talking about?
In one shot, Brian, Stacy storms out, gets into a limo, and drives away.
Well, yeah, but
David walks up, screams, Stacy! And he turns and he leaves. Then Mike Awesome shows up.
Mike Awesome is dragging Pamela to his love bus.
Yes. Well, he's escorting. He's not dragging her.
Well, not dragging her, but
She's willing.
He's going to show her his bus
I'm sure he is.
where he drives around the country and makes love. He's like, come on, baby, let me show you the inside of this bus. I was like, what?
Drives around the country and makes love.
That's what this is.
Where do you get this job?
Why is this a matter of such hilarity? That's what this was.
I don't think never mind. It doesn't matter.
So before he okay, say it.
There's
Before he can make love to Pamela, Jared attacks, ruining his night. Then the natural...
what else was going to happen? He was like, let's do the interview in front of my bus. That's what was going to happen. He was like, hey, let's do the interview on the bus. I don't want to do it in the arena. No, he was taking her there because he was going to drive around the country and make love to her. It's a love bus.
Uh-huh.
Clearly.
Well, before he can make love to her, Jared attacks. Then the Thrillers attack. And then they all say, they've got him beaten. It's like 9-on-1 or whatever. And then somebody says, hey, let's put him on top of the bus. What? And they drag him around and it fades to black. And we never saw him again. I don't know what happened to Mike Awesome.
He was on the
after this.
bus.
Apparently.
Not making
No, we
love.
saw the bus and there was no Mike Awesome there.
There's a
It's a plot hole, Brian.
sure. The whole show's a plot hole.
Maybe it's got one of those.
There's one giant plot. There's one giant plot hole with Nitro in it. So what this is?
You were thinking the bus is going to have like a loft, is what you were thinking, right, Brian?
Did you add in when Tony asked, and I quote, "Is this a trap?"
I did not catch that.
That was my favorite part. They fucking jump the guy, and as he's on the way to the love bus, they beat the shit out of him. They go to put him on the bus, and Tony goes, "Is this a trap?" No, Tony.
Mean Gene interviews Steiner, who says he lays down for nobody. Whether he leaves this building as champion or not, he will get even with Goldberg for fracturing his face. That's what he said. He begins to talk, not in these exact words, but he explains how big his dick is, as Gene Okerlund nods knowingly.
I wish I could have had the time to go back and transcribe this promo, but it wouldn't have mattered because I could not come close to being as marble-mouthed as Steiner was when he attempted to cut this promo. Talking about the fucking moon and
the
sun.
Big Dipper and sex, and
his
he vows
Big
to be
Dipper,
Goldberg
and he's going to do a go-behind.
Mm-hmm. And
Do the pumpkin grind.
Finally, at the very end, he says, I'm going to beat you, Goldberg, in 6 days at Fall Brawl. 6? This is a go-home show?
Yes.
Yeah, this
Are
is a
you
go-home
kidding
show
me?
for Fall Brawl.
Holy Christ. Kevin Nash versus Scott Steiner with Booker T as ref and Goldberg as special enforcer. Mm-hmm. Booker vows he's going to get his title back at Fall Brawl, which I assumed meant he was going to screw Steiner and make sure Nash won. So...
Kind of did.
Steiner refuses to lay down, so Nash goes to leave. Steiner grabs him. They have their fight.
And Nash gets slammed or something. I don't even know what. Somehow he ended up on the mat. Scott Steiner drops an elbow on Kevin Nash. Booker counts 1, 2, holds up his count, and checks Nash's shoulders. Nash is not kicked out. So am I supposed to believe that Nash, A, decided to lay down for Steiner, or B, was pinned after an elbow drop? What was I supposed to believe here?
I don't know. So eventually the heels just say, fuck this. They both attack the ref. They start beating up Booker. They're beating him and beating him and beating him. And another ref runs in and tries to get him to stop. And they're beating him. Like, where the fuck is Goldberg? I saw him in a chair 3 feet from the ring a minute ago. Finally, he shows up. Everyone's brawling everywhere for a long ass time. It's a 2-on-2 fight with 2 baby faces and 2 heels. The heels are winning on them until Cat makes the save, making it an unfair fight. Somewhere in this mess, well, okay, I guess this must have what happened. Mm-hmm. Goldberg got very, very angry with someone in the crowd.
Yes.
Yes, some fan did something, and Goldberg first demanded the fan come at him.
Yes.
Like he invited him over the barricade.
Yes, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea.
There was a woman in the crowd. She was wide-eyed and terrified.
This man did not come to face Goldberg.
That sucks.
So Goldberg demanded that they throw... He said something very, very nasty.
Yes.
Dropped an F-bomb.
Yes, throw that fucking guy out or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the fans, that was something.
So this whole thing, by this point, we're like 10 minutes into the segment, and here my notes read, here's a fucking bus.
Yeah.
Which is like a love bus.
Sure.
So the Thrillers are driving the bus now. They jump out and attack everybody. There's bats, there's pipes, there's chairs. Booker gets powerbombed. It's barely shown on TV because they're showing the fucking bus. They throw Booker through the windshield of the bus.
Kinda.
They handcuff Goldberg to the front of the bus. Jarrett starts the bus. He's going to run Bill Goldberg over on live TV, but Goldberg breaks free by breaking the grill of the bus. It fades to black. That is the go-home show for Fall Brawl. And here I simply wrote, what shit?
You know, this is one of those things that you don't think about until you think about it, but Russo is so stupid. It was a total WWE thing for Jarrett to drive the bus down the aisle.
Sure.
But, like, there was a reason Steve Austin drove the fucking beer truck down the aisle.
Right.
Because he was a crazy fucking guy that hijacked a beer truck, and he's gonna, like, fucking drive it like a crazy person through the backstage area and through the curtain, break the Titantron, go down the aisle, and just cause havoc. Because he's Steve Austin, okay? We're supposed to believe that instead of Jeff Jarrett just getting the Thrillers and having them run down to the ring and interfere in the main event, instead he decided it would be better to go beat up Mike Awesome, hijack the guy's bus, put the Thrillers in the bus, drive the bus through the backstage area, and then drive the bus down to the ring for them to run in.
Yes.
Why would anyone do this?
I don't know.
So yeah, they tried to run over Bill. He fought free, and that was your go-home angle for Fall Brawl coming up on Sunday. So there you go, everybody. Would you like to play your music, Vinny?
Let's wrap this up.
Here you go.
The finishes on this show were pin after flying shot to the nuts, pin in a stickball bat on a pole match, pin pin in a stickball bat and a pole match after interference by 2 men. DQ in a women's match when a guy ran in and got beat up. Handcuffed man pins a woman after hitting her with a guitar. Pin after a retired guy hit a Canadian with a 2x4. No finish in a wedding when a father of the groom is arrested. Pin in a handicap match after 2 men interfere and everyone uses chains. No finish in a wedding when the bride has a crisis of honesty. And no finish in the main event because the special referee and the special enforcer are both beaten like complete geeks.
I actually think Raw was worse.
A crisis of honesty?
She could no longer keep a secret that David was not the father.
Crisis of honesty.
I've never had one of those crises.
Raw was definitely worse finishes. Can you believe that?
The worst parts on Raw were worse than the worst parts on Nitro.
Yeah, I would say that. All right, everybody, we are out of time. We're going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back on Thursday with Granny, and I believe that we're actually going to do the contest for the John Cena bobblehead this week. That seems to be the plan.
She Facebook messaged me to remind her what the contest was. I almost had to message you because I forgot, but I did remember.
Okay. Well, that's coming up on Thursday, everybody, and that is it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Adios.